Good evening, everyone. Today is September 14th, 2020. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning Board of the City of Asbury Park. It is 7 p.m. And Barbara, will you please call us to order?
Yes, I hereby call the Planning Board meeting for September 14th, 7 p.m. to order at this point. I'd like to read the following. This meeting is being conducted by electronic means in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, amended 2020, which explicitly permits a public body to conduct meetings electronically during a state of emergency. Adequate notice of the meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press. All notices are on file with the board secretary. In addition, a notice regarding this virtual meeting and instructions were published in the Asbury Park Press and the City of Asbury Park website. A copy of notice is on file with the board secretary. The notices and conduct of this meeting are in accordance with the guidelines of virtual meetings issued by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Please note that all microphones of public users are muted until the public question or comment period. If you would like to speak during that time only, please use the raise hand button in Zoom if on a computer, or the *9 if on a telephone. Your name or last four digits of the phone number will be called when it is your turn to speak. Due to the number of people in attendance, we will limit public questions and cross-examination to only one session per person without a time limit. That means for every witness, you can ask a question once. You can appear at the microphone once. If at any time during your question you are deemed to be out of line or topic or out of order, we reserve the right to mute your microphone and will make an announcement that this has occurred. During the public comment section only, the public will have 3 minutes to speak. Due to the number of people, we will have a hard cutoff at 3 minutes, and then your microphone will be muted. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices during this meeting. Please identify yourself before you speak at all times. This meeting is being recorded and will be available to view via APTV. Please join me for the salute of the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Thank you. I will now take roll. Mayor John Moore. Sorry, he is here, but we can't hear him.
He's got to be on the record.
1 second. All right, just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, sorry about that. Mayor John Moore.
Here.
Thank you,
Here.
Joe. Sorry about that.
Okay. Am I going to question before you go further?
You are
Am I
good.
going to be unmuted the rest of the meeting?
Yes. I'm going to. Okay. Yes, you're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton.
Here.
Thank you. Michael Manzella.
Here.
Jim Henry. Let the record show he is absent. Jennifer Souter.
Here.
Trudy Syfax. Let the record show she is absent. Alexis Taylor.
Here.
Eric Gallipo.
Here.
Rick Lambert.
Here.
And Barbara Krzak.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for August 11th, 2020. That was a regular meeting. Does anybody have any concerns about any modifications to the minutes of that meeting that were not already included?
I will note that I received one comment from Jennifer Souter, and that change will be included and made into the minutes. Any other changes or comments?
No one else? All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Mike Manzella.
Second, Yvonne Clayton.
Thank you. I have a motion by Michael Manzella and a second by Yvonne Clayton. And I believe everyone is eligible to vote. How do you?
I'm
I'm sorry.
not eligible.
Yes, Barbara was recused. And everyone else, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes approved.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Asbury Partners LLC, 1500 Ocean Avenue, otherwise known as the Asbury Park Beach Club. One thing I would like to place on the record that at this point at 7:06, we have the number of attendees that are not panelists at 87. Panelists, we have 21. Those are all the professionals and the planning board members, etc. But attendees, we have 87 at this time. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, let's talk about jurisdiction. Madam Chairwoman and members of the board, I've reviewed the documentation in support of the notification of the application, certification of mailings, certified mailing slips, affidavits in both the coaster, affidavits of publication in both the coaster and the Asbury Park Press, as well as a supplemental list that was mailed by regular mail over and above the requirements of the law. And all of the notices are in proper order and timely. So we have jurisdiction to proceed with the application as amended this evening.
Excellent. Do we want to swear in the board professionals, or should we just should we hand it over to Jennifer?
Well, let's swear them in just in case there's any questions or it goes beyond question or turns into testimony. Who is here? Doug is here. Is Donna or Michael Sullivan here? No?
Donna's here.
Oh, Donna. Okay, I can't see you. All right, please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear the testimony that each of you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do.
Please state your names for the record and your affiliation with the board.
Donna Miller, board planner.
Doug Cleland, Insight Engineering, board engineer.
Great, thank you.
All right, Jennifer.
Excellent. Thank you,
Get
Madam
started.
Chair. It's good to see everyone again. For the record, my name is Jennifer Phillips Smith, and I am an attorney with Gibbons. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. It is good to see everyone again. It has been approximately 7 months since we were last before you. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just give a very quick summary of where we are in the overall process with this application and what you will be hearing this evening. And let's start at the beginning. This application was initially filed with the TRC near the end of 2018. We actually appeared before the TRC on December 14th, 2018 at a public meeting. We appeared at a public meeting of the City Council in early 2019, and on March 13th, 2019, the City Council adopted a resolution allowing us to come here to the Planning Board and finding that the plan was consistent with the waterfront redevelopment plan. We filed our application on behalf of Asbury Partners in early April of 2019, and that was for preliminary and final major site plan approval, along with requested waivers from the architectural guidelines within the waterfront redevelopment plan. Our first public hearing was on May 29th, 2019. At that time, you heard from Gary Handel, our architect, who is also here this evening. Then in June, you heard from Sean Delaney, our site engineer. His testimony carried on into August of 2019. In September of 2019, you heard from our landscape architect, Tom Bauer. And then in October, you heard from our planning professional, Keenan Hughes. We then heard from 2 witnesses that SAW brought forward. That carried us through to the December 9th meeting. On January 27th, 2020, Mr. Delaney came back to provide additional testimony concerning stormwater and items that were raised by the professionals that SAW had brought before the board. Then on February 3rd, the entire evening was dedicated to public comment. Along the way, the public had been asking questions of every witness, but then on February 3rd, the evening was devoted to public comment for a little over an hour and a half. Every member that was there who wanted to speak was able to speak that evening, and then the public portion was closed. There have been a number of things that have happened since February 3rd, not the least of which is, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. We were scheduled to come back before the board in late March, and unfortunately that meeting had to be canceled, and we waited a number of months until now in order to come forward to finish the application. Of significance to this application in particular, on February 21st, I sent a letter to the board notifying the board that the NJDEP had determined that the application was consistent with the coastal regulations and consistent with the previously issued CAFRA permit. That letter was also provided to Mr. Lieberman. And I'll just actually pause for a moment here. Mr. Lieberman, are you here and able to hear me?
It takes me a while to unmute. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. It's nice to hear you. Right?
Good.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you.
Good to hear from you as well. Just wanted to make sure you were here as a participant. So that letter was provided on February 21st, and we'll move to mark that later on this evening when we tackle some administrative matters. Also of significance to this application, following public comment, there were a number of comments that concerned the facade of the building. So in March of this year, we submitted revised plans. Those revised plans concerned just the facade. We then received a comment letter from the planner for the board. Following that letter, there were a few additional revisions that needed to be made. Those were resubmitted in July, and we received another letter from Ms. Miller and Clark Caton Hintz. This evening, what we're presenting to you are those revised facade plans. Now, I just went through a long list of all the testimony that you've heard. Most of that testimony is absolutely still relevant. What has not changed, the building size, the building height, the building location, the building footprint, none of those things have changed. They are all still the same as what was previously testified to. The site lighting was all testified to by Mr. Delaney and has not changed. The stormwater has been testified to Mr. Delaney and has not changed. But what has changed in response to public comment is the design of the facade itself. You will see from Mr. Handel this evening that the wood cladding has been removed and been replaced with white stucco. You will see that the twining vines that had been proposed for the living wall and the exterior of the building have been removed, as well as the cable system that was going to be there to support them. You will see this evening that the shuttered openings in the front facade have been replaced. They've been enlarged. They now have glass in them, are more transparent, and they are also being operable casement windows. They've been pushed into the facade so that there is articulation. And Mr. Handel will go over that more eloquently than I am. This evening, we'll have Mr. Handel come up and give that testimony, tell you what has changed on the facade itself, keeping in mind that all those other basics, the size, the location, the footprint of the building, haven't changed. Before we bring up Mr. Handel, we've already gone over the notice. I do have a few items, Mr. Serpico, that need to be marked before we bring up Mr. Handel, or we could do them at the end of the meeting. Things like
Let's do it now.
Okay. Some of them, I believe, are going to be marked as board exhibits. And Irina, if you could help me with that as we go along. If I say anything incorrectly, please let me know.
Sure.
There are 2 letters from Clark Caton Hintz that were issued while we were in between our last hearing on February 3rd. There was the second one from June, and the third one is dated August 31st, 2020. Would you like to mark those as board exhibits?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Those have been pre-marked. The second letter has been pre-marked as B005. And the most recent letter dated, sorry, just one sec, dated
August 31st.
Yes, thank you. August 31st has been marked as B006.
And just for the record, what has been marked as B004?
And B004 is the the third engineering review by Insight, dated September 4th, 2019.
Excellent. While we're doing board exhibits, are there any other board exhibits after board 006 that need to be marked at the outset of the hearing?
No, that it was the last one, is B006. And I'm showing it on the screen now. That's B004. And this is B005, CCH letter dated May 21st. And the last board exhibit, which is B006. And the most recent for tonight's hearing, dated May 21st. Oh, I'm sorry, updated June 22nd, 2020.
Wait,
I think they're backwards.
no, backwards. The most recent one is.
Oh,
last
they
dated
are.
August
I'm so
31st.
sorry. I
That's
will
okay.
change that.
Okay, it's okay.
That's all right. For the record, we could make B005, the most recent one dated August 31st, and B006, the prior one. Or it looks.
Actually, I'm just going to change that,
Okay,
if you don't mind, because that's how I had it recorded.
Okay, so B005 is from June, and B006 is from August.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I would like to bring up Mr. Handel.
Hello, Jennifer. Can you
I
see me?
can't see him. Is there, I'm not getting a view of.
Oh,
a-
Mr. Handel, can you please speak so that Jack can see you? Jack, if you click on the upper right-hand corner of your screen, click on, click on gallery view so that you can see everyone on your screen.
Mr. Serpico, can you see me now? Do I come up?
No, not yet. Where would I find the gallery?
So move your mouse up to the upper right-hand corner of your screen and just click gallery view.
You may say speaker view.
And Jack, can you tell me if you can see me now?
So far, I cannot.
Is anyone else or others having the same problem?
I can
I
see
We
it.
while
can-
you're sharing your screen, Irina, we don't have the same view.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, just one second.
There
There
you
we
go.
go.
How about now, Jack?
Okay, now I can see you. Okay.
All right, great.
Okay, Mr. Handel, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and your affiliation with the applicant.
My name is Gary Handel. I am the architect for the applicant.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Handel previously appeared on May 29th of 2019, and he was accepted as an expert in the field of architecture. Mr. Handel, does your New Jersey license remain current?
Yes, it does.
Madam Chair, is there anything you need further from Mr. Handel for his continuing acceptance as an expert in the field of architecture?
No, we're fine, thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Handel, just to refresh our recollection, can you summarize some of your other projects that you've worked on?
Yes, certainly. So Handel Architects is an international firm with over 200 architects, designers, and planners with offices in New York, Boston, San Francisco, and Hong Kong. Some of our more noteworthy projects include the 9/11 Memorial in downtown New York, a new memorial for the Emmanuel 9 at the site of Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina, the new Philippine Stock Exchange in Manila in the Philippines, the conversion of Pier 57 in the Hudson River for retail and a new office space for Google, waterfront developments in Brooklyn, and in Weehawken and in other places, as well as projects in Journal Square and the Asbury Ocean Club here in Asbury Park, and in addition to several hundred other significant projects around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Handel. Now, we'll see if the magic of Zoom works here, but I would like to bring up one of the revised plans that has been submitted, specifically the ground floor plan. And I think for this, Irina, Rick Kearns is in our participant panel. Here we go. There we go. So this has been marked as Exhibit A56, and it is the ground floor plan. It's just referencing this exhibit. Has the size or footprint of the building changed since Mr. Delaney last testified?
No.
Has the general layout of the floor plan changed?
No.
Has the height of the building changed?
No.
On the rear elevation, there was an articulated wood fence. Has that changed?
No.
All right, so let's talk about what has changed.
So we've redesigned the facade to meet the waterfront redevelopment plan guidelines by meeting the requirements of architectural style, building materials, window proportions, glass door fronts, void solid relationship, fenestration, and building articulation so that no design exceptions would be required.
Okay. Let's talk about the architectural style of the building. And as you do this, I would ask if the perspective that's been filed with the board could be brought up as an exhibit. Yeah. This is A59. And actually, if you don't mind, if we could go back just so I make sure I mark them to A57. Sorry. Okay. So this is 56 that we have marked. And that's okay, Rick. You know what? We can come back and mark 57 and 58. We can just go to 59 right now. We'll come back and mark the others. Okay, so we'll mark this one as A59. Before you begin, can you just tell me what this is?
This is, yes, Jennifer, this is a rendering of the building looking on Ocean Avenue.
Okay,
So
so
the entrance to the building.
let's talk about architectural style. The waterfront redevelopment plan provides guidelines concerning the Mediterranean style, arts and crafts, the modern style. The board's planners describe this style as international modern. How would you describe the architectural style of the proposed facade now?
We agree with the board planners' characterization, of international modern, which the principles combine simple, well-proportioned building forms and use materials specifically recommended by the WRP. The facade retains its one-story horizontal mass with a vertical accent at the southern corner of the facade that extends above the first story, but is now clad in a white stucco finish. The shuttered openings have been replaced with casement windows punched into the facade. The rhythm of the windows have a similar rhythm to the intercolumnation of the North Beach condominium lower loggia across the street, but done in a more modern way. The arched entry remains, but instead of a gate, it now contains a glass storefront.
Excellent. Is it your opinion that the architectural style of the new proposed facade complies with the waterfront redevelopment plan?
Yes, we believe this is in compliance with the WRP.
Okay. So we have submitted the two other more detailed elevations, which I will go back momentarily to mark as exhibits A57 and A58. But starting with this exhibit A59 and the perspective, I'd like you to describe in detail some of the changes, perhaps starting with the exterior stucco.
Yes, so as mentioned, the facade retains its one-story horizontal mass in height, but it's now clad in smooth white stucco with vertical cedar wood accents over new windows. The rooftop elevator bulkhead is also clad in stucco and has a similar vertical cedar wood accent. So all of the wood cladding except for those accent pieces has been replaced with white stucco in line with the requirements of the WRP. You can also see the new window openings, which previously had shutters, and those prior shuttered openings have been replaced with rectangular proportioned casement windows to create a rhythm of solid columnar stucco elements in window and wood accents along Ocean Avenue. The window sizes are approximately 5 feet wide and 6.5 feet tall.
Now, the waterfront redevelopment plan requires rectangular casement windows. We had previously sought relief when the windows were not rectangular casement windows. But on this plan, would you consider these to be rectangular casement windows?
Yes, and not only my opinion, but the facts of geometry make them rectangular casement windows, yes.
As we're all learning while we do virtual schooling. The waterfront redevelopment plan requires windowsills to slightly overlap the width of the opening. Is that the case with the proposed windowsills?
Yes, the windowsills are overlapped on each side.
Now, there's also the storefront glass entry. Can you describe that?
Yes, so the arched entry remains the same size as it had been previously submitted, but it's now enclosed with a metal and clear glass storefront, and the archway is offset with a small circular clear glass window.
Now, the waterfront redevelopment plan requires storefront glass to be clear. The applicant previously proposed colored glass. Is the proposed glass now clear?
Yes, clear glass is currently proposed.
Okay. Now, can you talk about the void to solid ratio and fenestration?
Sure. So with the additional windows and storefront glass, the fenestration is more than the required 20%, and the void solid ratio similarly complies with the WRP.
And then how about the doorway? Can you describe the front entry door?
Yes, the front doorway now has a door that's side hinged, which is in compliance with the WRP.
Can you describe how the new proposed facade incorporates the idea of building articulation?
Yes, and you can see with the, on the facade rendering, you have the articulation zone, which is comprised of all of the casement windows that stretch along Ocean Avenue. So those windows are now depressed into the facade by approximately 2 inches, and the columnar stucco elements rise above the adjacent wood accents by approximately 16 inches. These two design elements create articulation in both surface change and in elevation for approximately 150 lineal feet of the facade. The area by the arched entryway and circular window is not articulated, but runs for approximately 65 feet, which is less than the maximum length of 100 feet allowed to be without articulation.
Now, on the prior plan, there was a cable system that was proposed for the exterior facade to allow for vines to climb up the facade. Is that still incorporated into this design?
No, so with the new design, we've eliminated the vine wall along Ocean Avenue, but are still keeping the beach grass at the sidewalk level.
Okay. Now, this is the facade that faces Ocean Avenue. How are the facades along the north and south side of the building changed?
So for both the north and south side elevations, the only changes are the Ocean Avenue stucco wraps around the corners. The fence height and design remain the same as previously presented.
So those are all the questions that I have for Mr. Handel. Mr. Serpico, I do want to call Mr. Bauer to just very briefly touch upon the fact that the vines have been removed. I leave it to you and to Madam Chairwoman to decide if we have Mr. Bauer briefly testify to that before we move on to allow for cross-examination and questioning of both gentlemen.
I would. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead. I was just going to.
All right. I just wanted to, we had a discussion about this, and in all applications, we've really kept all of the witnesses separate. So I would really prefer everything to remain separate, as we have in the past.
Fair enough. So if you'd like to allow if there's any board questions for Mr. Handel based on the new design, and then Mr. Lieberman can proceed to cross-examination.
right, why don't we go with Mr. Lieberman as we have in the past? And then go right to the board questions after that. Would that be all right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you
Certainly.
see? I don't know what anybody can see. Does anybody see me?
I can see you, Stuart.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody. All right. Thank you very much. Sorry, I just have a few questions for you. When you, the view from the boardwalk has been changed. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so from the boardwalk,
I'm sorry. The view from the boardwalk has not been changed.
well, it has not. Okay, I thought it was. I mean, you got rid of the planters and the benches at a minimum, right?
For clarity, are you talking about are you asking if they've been changed since February, or are you asking if they've been changed since Mr. Delaney testified as to the fence line back in, I guess it was January?
Well, the difference between January and February to me is a little cloudy since we're like a half a year later. But at some point in time, from the time the first testimony was given about the view from the boardwalk, at a minimum, a change, the planters and the benches were removed, right? Right, Ms. Smith, isn't that correct?
I will say that it's previously been testified to that the planters and the benches had been proposed as part of the boardwalk plan, which was a plan that was pending before the city council and which now has actually been substantially completed. Ultimately, the city council in their approval did not include benches or planters on the boardwalk in that location.
Okay, but other than that, just back to the witness, other than that, there are no changes to the fence that's along the boardwalk. Is that accurate?
None others than have been previously testified to.
None others that have been previously testified to. Okay, so without the, so since we're not going to have the benches and the planters, but when was the change made that the grass was inserted? Aren't you now installing that special type of grass where the planters were going to be? Isn't that a recent development, or am I off by several months?
That was previously testified to, by Mr. Delaney when he covered the site plan.
Okay. I'm wondering, I mean, I was out a day. Maybe I missed it that day. I actually was in Florida getting tan. So maybe that's what happened then. In light of the only questions I was going to ask about were along the boardwalk view, and if there are no other changes on that view, then I don't have any other questions to ask you. So, as amazing as that might seem and unbelievable, I don't have any other questions. So, thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Lieberman.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone on the planning board have any questions that they would like to bring up?
Hi, this is Rick. I do. I have to say I like the new design. It's amazing what a little pandemic will do. Creativity. I think it's a much better design than what was previously submitted. I have questions. So where the casement windows are, the area above that, is that, you said it's a wooden detail? Is that wood matches the fencing detail on the beach side? And also the elevator tower?
So the idea really is, yes, to have a consistent vocabulary of those wood elements.
So my only question about that is, so I like the international modern style, but it seems like that wooden accent really wasn't kind of commonly used in any of international styles, mainly like glass and metal and smooth surfaces that didn't really have any kind of texture to it. In my own opinion, I just think it kind of detracts from the style of the building to have that wooden insert in there. Maybe something that was more along the same lines as the smooth texture, or some kind of a metal insert or something might be more appropriate for that design, but that's just my opinion. I think the wood detracts from the design overall. So I think it's a really, really well thought out, very pretty design, and I think it could even spice it up, step it up more if the wood was replaced with something that was a better accent piece.
Well, thank you for your comments. We like the wood just in terms of creating a little bit more intimacy and scale along along Ocean and a little bit more warmth. But we understand your comments and appreciate them.
This is Mike Manziel. I have a few questions, Madam Chairwoman.
Go for it.
Previously, there was testimony that the building would have some kind of identification signage. Is that still planned to be in this new design of the facade?
I believe that there was a small identification sign on the front glass window. And I think you're correct that it doesn't actually show in this view, but Mr. Handel, we could add that back onto the glass, correct?
Yes, I think that didn't show up on the rendering. So it'd be a very discreet sign right on the glass storefront.
Yeah, I think ideally, per city ordinance, it would be nice to have both the name of the building and the location address.
That's fine.
Point taken. Thank you, Michael.
Mm-hmm. Another question as far as the stucco application, is it planned to be kind of a brushed application to have some texture, or is it more of a smooth application of that stucco?
It'll be a medium smooth, so we're still working on the exact formulation, but so we'll be happy to to share the exact application.
Okay. Yeah, I guess just go ahead.
I apologize. That the waterfront redevelopment plan requires a stucco to comply with certain parameters, and so it will comply with the waterfront redevelopment.
It has to be. It's flat white, but flat white can mean many things. But Jennifer's correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then this question may be more for our board planner, but as far as the articulation requirements, design requirements in the waterfront redevelopment area plan, does that apply to all four sides, both the articulation and the fenestration, or is that simply for the frontage?
I think it's frontage.
Donna Miller here. Yeah, most of the design criteria in the waterfront redevelopment plan apply to street frontages. Again, the original plan contemplated, entire block development, so it would have applied, on more sides. But in this application, it's just going to be on the Ocean Avenue side.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions I had for the architect.
Anyone else have?
I just have one question. When you were redesigning the building, was there any thought given to changing the design on the side facing the ocean?
There were some changes that, as Jennifer had mentioned, that were made previously in the earlier part of the year, and those have already been testified to. No other further changes have been contemplated.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Handel, if you don't mind, just for clarity, those changes that we talked about that were previously testified to involved punching in the fence in certain places, pushing it in and articulating it to add planting. That's what you're referring to, correct?
Yes, and we can bring up the ground floor plan again to show that to help explain that to the board.
Right.
So if you look at the boardwalk side, you can see the creation of all of those niches along the boardwalk, and that will be where the insertion of the beach grasses would be, as previously testified to, in order to create that sense of articulation along the boardwalk that again had been previously testified to.
Thank you.
John Moore, question.
Yes,
Hello.
Yes,
okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the picture, the rendition of the west side, but in my package I have a rendition of the east, north, or south side. And looking at the little bit of the north side, it doesn't show the doors or anything else. So is it possible we can get pictures of those three sides, what it's actually going to look like, as you did with the west side?
If we could pull up, now's a good time for me to mark those other two exhibits. There we go. There, we're going to pull up the exhibits that are marked or about to be marked, A57 and A58, which would be They're actually in the 60s here. So, Rick, if you could pull up the one that shows east and west elevation. There we go. Okay, so this is actually A57, and this is the east and west elevation. So it's showing the front and the back of the club. And then, Mr. Handel, Rick, if there's one that shows the sides, if not, we can indicate the doors are still in the exact location where they were previously, right? The side entrance doors for the deliveries.
Yes. So Jen, those files aren't uploaded onto that site. So
Okay.
I can't download them.
So let's pull up then, go back to the ground floor plan at I guess it was A56. There we go. So, Mr. Handel, does this show where the doors are located?
Right. So you can see the location of an egress door there. And then on the other side, you can see the location of an egress door, and as well as the door from the kitchen back of house area as well, those two doors. And we can send an elevation along that illustrates those two doors in context.
Okay, more again, and I appreciate that. And I can see that on the plan, and I saw that on the plan, but the pretty picture you showed us just of the west side, we don't have a pretty picture of the north, south, and east. So can we get a pretty picture of that? Because sometimes a picture can say 1,000 words.
Well, I think you can see, Mayor, on the perspective that's been marked as A59, you can see the side of the building there that faces the walkway. I guess that would, Mr. Handel, would that be the
Yes, you can see
outside?
You can see that, and the doors would be at the very end there, adjacent, close to the boardwalk.
Correct.
Correct. And I see the walkway, but I don't see any doors, and maybe I need new glasses. I apologize.
So, Mr. Handel, the door would be right where
you can see that there. Yeah, you can see the indication of the doors where the pointer is.
So, Mayor, if you have that in front of you, it would be as the wall comes close to the boardwalk.
Correct. And thank you. I guess I'm asking for something I'm not going to get. Thank you.
Alexis Taylor. I just have a couple of questions
Sure.
and comments. So first of all, Mr. Handel, thank you. You mentioned your previous experience, and I want to thank you for the contributions that you made to the design of the 9/11 Memorial. I was there on Friday to pay my respects, and I remember how contentious and how many competing agendas there were for that memorial design. And I always think that it speaks to the recuperative and healing ability of design to bring a city together. So I want to thank you for your contributions that you made to that. I do have some questions about the current design, which is described as kind of the international style. You did say, though, that you borrowed the kind of cadence and fenestration from across the street. What would be the characterization of the design of the building across the street?
Yeah, so the building across the street, it's hard to characterize. It would probably so it would probably be closest references would be Mediterranean, and we didn't want to lean literally on that, on that style, but we felt that that we could create a contextual reference there without a stylistic reference in terms of scale and proportion, and so that was our intent, not to borrow stylistically from the North Beach condos, but to rather just create a contextual reference where you could have two buildings that acknowledged each other's existence while they would have very different styles, which I think the WRP allows for with the creation of the various styles that are allowed for under the WRP.
Great. And I guess, how would you, and this may be also a question for our board planner, because not all of us were privy to kind of the evolution of this design. But first of all, how would you characterize the style of your previous design?
So I think it was also a modern building, and in fairness, the stylistic, the inability to exactly classify it was one of the things that led us to be asking for some leniency on the design, and so the attempt there really had been to create more of a building that was in between building and landscape with the green screen on it, which we thought could be wonderful in this natural setting. But we came to the board, we heard a lot of public comment and a lot of questioning about that, and we huddled amongst ourselves, and we realized that we could achieve our intent with something that would be much closer to in full compliance, and perhaps even in full compliance with the regulations of the WRP, and that's what we set out to do in consultation with our clients and the rest of the consultant team. So, so we heard some of the public comment and testimony. There was, well, we loved the vines; others liked them less so. While we liked the shutters, others liked them less so. So we listened, we heard, and then we came back with a design that we're quite proud of. It's much more of a building in the traditional sense than our prior efforts had been, and that's not a bad thing.
No, and I'm glad to hear you characterize it. I think that helps. I do appreciate the response to public comment and public opinion. I think I might differ from my colleagues on the board in that I did think that your previous design was very forward-looking. I understand that you wanted to comply with the WRP, which was a bit of a backward-looking document, and that it did speak to kind of 20th century design, whether it's Mediterranean or international. I think that you have come in compliance with that. I would just, state for the record, and I may be in the minority opinion, but I think that your previous design was very forward-looking.
Well, thank you for all of those. Thank you for all of those your comments. We testify, as you might imagine, in front of many of these committees, and the regulatory frame that's established will in large measure determine what you get. And so so my advice to all of you would be is if like changing the frame will change the results.
Okay. But thank you for problem solving with design. I appreciate it.
Anybody else from the board?
Sorry, this is Mike Manzel. I have a few more questions. I apologize. So I understand that this second floor really hasn't changed at all, at least the footprint or anything like that. But can you talk a little bit about a couple items on the second floor that were testified previously to in the old design? That being kind of what the facade of the elevator / mechanical room sort of looks like on all four sides. Also, if there were any changes to that sort of canopy that's on the east side of that elevator shaft, and also kind of how the parapet, I'm assuming it's a parapet on the second floor, how that design sort of changes with this new facade design.
Sure. So the stucco is on all four sides. So it's a volume. It becomes a stucco volume there, and then the canopy is exactly the same. So that has not changed at all, and the parapet is the same height, except it has the dips, as you see, that create the articulation that are approximately 16 inches deep.
Okay. And previously, I guess there was some lighting on the parapet that pointed downward to light the second floor. Is that still there, but just on the columnar portions, I guess?
So I believe the lighting had been testified to previously and remains as testified to.
Okay. And the one last question, the elevator shaft has the wooden kind of accent on the western facing side. Is that only there and not on other sides of that shaft?
I believe only on that side at the elevator entrance to create where you could actually see out. Only on the west.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the board that has any other questions? If no one else has some, I do. I'd like to just ask a few things. Can you just clarify once again that I'm just checking to see which items have already have changed and perhaps have not. The lighting on the site on the I guess it's the north side of the building that the south side of the building that I see right now. Has that changed from what was originally testified to?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I wasn't sure if that was for me or for Gary, but either way, Gary.
Either way.
The answer is no, right? The lighting is exactly the same as it was previously testified to, correct?
Correct.
So those three lights are the only lights that will be lighting that sidewalk?
From the building?
Yes. Yes, from the building. Also, did the light change that's at the front of the building, that's at the entrance? Is that the same light that that was testified to? The entrance?
I believe so.
So it's not changing. It worries me when you say I believe so.
Because the lighting had been testified to
Understand.
Previously. So I don't believe there's been any change since the last testimony.
Okay. Because it concerns me that because the design was different, was the lighting style different?
So
the style of the fixture.
So there have been no changes since the last testimony on lighting, which Jennifer remind me of the date.
Okay, no, that's okay. I just want to make sure.
Yep.
All right. Now that there was a mention of signage that Mike had made prior, I know that we had some discussions about the size of that in prior testimony. I just want to make sure that we are that the signage is based on this. I believe that we determined the size on prior testimony so that we could see the address of the building. Yes. And that there would be something that named the building.
The signage that was previously testified to that would be on the glass and that was shown in the prior exhibits and prior plans will be incorporated exactly as it was in that size.
Okay, and then the number, obviously the address, the number of the building.
Yes,
right.
Madam Chair. Yes.
All right. When I see the bike racks in the view that we have here, I see that they're indented into the grasses. Mm-hmm. Is that how it's going to be, or is that just a rendering?
So Tom Bauer will testify to all of the site work as soon as he gets up.
Okay, so that's someone else. Okay. And one other item that I wanted to speak about is that I'm assuming the north and the south side look fairly similar, where you have the whitish stucco that's a pretty large wall that's there, or it almost looks like maybe two separate walls. It's hard for me to tell if they blend together or if they have some.
We can go to the plan, and
okay.
Maybe will help.
That'd be fine.
Yep. So you can see that there's a notch there as you come in off of Ocean Avenue, a step out.
Yes.
And then the box that box continues, and it wraps around like to that point, and then transitions into the fencing material.
Okay. And the size of those walls, the length of those walls, roughly. The two individual ones that you have there?
Yes. So so I'll have to get the breaks for you. Are they on the plan? Can we see other dimensions?
They aren't on, I don't see them on this plan. My concern, let me get to what my real point is.
Sure.
Is that my concern is that the walls they're large walls. And I was wondering if there was any consideration to pretty much the history of art in Asbury Park, if there was any consideration for a mural on any of those walls, which would bring the city together with, there are many murals that are down the boardwalk and all over the city. I was wondering if that was of any consideration.
I think that's something we would have to discuss with the applicant. As of right now, there are no murals shown on the plan. I would have to take a minute to discuss that with my client, which I'm sure over the course of the evening we'll have a break at some point and I can report back.
Okay.
So I have the dimensions of those walls with their breaks are approximately 20 feet for the short return and then approximately 51 feet for the longer piece.
Okay. All right. So you have about 70 feet of blank wall essentially there. 20 and 50 roughly.
Correct.
Okay. And that's on the north and the south side, same dimensions.
Correct.
I would say that probably on the north side, it's 70 even, as opposed to having any breaks. Is that correct?
But there's no. So there on both sides, there's this slight recess as you come towards Ocean.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes.
And then the step outs, and then so they're both broken in that same way.
Okay.
And Mr. Handel, just for clarification, on that side of the building, I guess that's the north side, the stucco.
So there's the stucco wraps for 20 feet from Ocean, and then the wood picks up for the 51 feet of the lower fencing material.
Oh, you see, that's exactly where the mayor is right, as he often is that us seeing the southern depiction of what it looks like, which is stucco, at times we forget what used to be, what is on the north side. In my mind, I assume stucco. So this is fencing, because it has been a while.
Yeah, so that portion is fencing on the north side.
Okay, is there stucco on right around the corner from Ocean on the north side? That 20 feet is that stucco?
Correct. That's stucco.
Okay, so we only have the longer walls of stucco on the south side.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now. Does anybody else from the board have any questions? Okay, how about our professionals? Any questions that you'd like to address that were in your report, or statements about that were in your report, Donna?
Sorry, Donna. No, I believe Mr. Handel has addressed everything that we had.
And if I may, Madam Chairwoman, if I could ask Ms. Miller, I believe the conclusion of the most recent report was that this facade plan complies fully with the waterfront redevelopment plan and that no relief from the architectural guidelines is now required. Is that accurate?
Our review of the plans, yes. Our determination is that the modification of the finish, the articulation along the Ocean Avenue facade relieves any of the prior exceptions that we had pointed out.
Can I ask Barbara, may I ask a question of the board planner?
Absolutely.
So in the iterations of the design, I guess I would love to understand kind of the design criteria or driving criteria for the changes. So was it found that there was some critical flaw in the previous design or the green wall or anything else that led to a redesign, or was the major kind of design driver just coming into the basically not requiring a design exception? Was that what led to the redesign?
I think that may actually be a question for Mr. Handel and for our team.
Yeah.
And with the resubmission, because Ms. Miller didn't, it wasn't a back and forth with Ms. Miller. We just sent our plans in and they were reviewed in the normal course. But I will say that we did want the plan to come into, after hearing the public comment and the public views, we decided to revise the facade to come into full compliance with the waterfront redevelopment plan.
Okay. So there was no other kind of like functional form follows function errors, as in, like, I know there was criticism of the green wall and whether or not it was actually functional, but those weren't the drivers. It was just in order to not ask the board for a design exception.
In order to come into compliance with the redevelopment plan and to not require any exceptions. Correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Oh, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention is that with the windows that appear here that have been inserted here, what will be seen from the street through those windows? What will people walking on Ocean Ave be able to see?
Well, we believe there'll be curtains there. Like there would be as behind. So we're required to have windows that are casements that are rectangular in proportion. So that is a requirement of the WRP. We believe that people, while they are in their cabanas, which are what is behind there, will want some privacy at some point. So there will be curtains there for them to close.
Okay.
And those curtains are not precluded by the WRP.
But those curtains can open and people can see in.
That is a fact.
Okay. I have a question for you from our board planner, but it has to do with lighting, and it's a comment that you made in the report. And I just perhaps protocol, I mean, it has to be kind of discussed here, is that in your section of 3-7 lighting, there are some, I know in a lot of other sections you had mentioned that that things comply. But once we got into lighting, there was a concern there that, there's a particular concern giving the potential effect on the adjacent multi-story, multi-family residence. There was some mention of lighting there, that lower mounting heights, fully shielded fixtures and low glare angles could be employed to reduce. Now, does that mean that was that because of the way that it was written? That's something new that's in this report, correct?
This is Donna Miller. Yes, that is new in this report because our original report with the initial submission did not have a fully fleshed out lighting plan. So our initial review only had a cursory evaluation of that plan. So I think sometime between April of last year and maybe June, Mr. Delaney had provided testimony, and they had given us a revised site plan sheet with more details on the lighting. And so we hadn't had a reason to update the report, in that interim. So this most recent version of our report recapped both what happened in testimony and what happened in the, or our opinion of, the testimony given and what's reflected on those plans. So as you know, in the waterfront redevelopment plan, we don't have strict lighting specifications. We're adding those to the land development ordinance now, and we're making, a lot of effort to, use fully shielded fixtures to reduce, opportunities for glare. So these comments, again, the lighting they're proposing within the beach club, which is on site and not really off site or having an impact off site, except for the fact that without a roof and being in an area where there are buildings taller than this one, there will be light effects from within the site off site. It's not something that we typically deal with. It's not even something that regulations typically think about. But they are using directional light fixtures. So they're able to aim them however they like. They're not shielded. They're not full cutoff. So there is a concern that there's a potential for light glare or direct light happening in ways that will affect the adjoining building.
And Mr. Delaney had gone through every light fixture in his testimony and talked about each particular light fixture, where it would be, how tall it would be, what shielding it would be on it, the direction it would be. And if, I don't know if you recall, I think that portion was probably around an hour's worth of testimony on very specific details concerning all of the lighting on the site.
I believe in Mr. Delaney's testimony, there were details and comments about the attempts to create shielding as well.
Correct.
So we can pull up those comments again, Madam Chair, but I believe that Mr. Delaney has attempted to address those concerns.
And I just want to clarify, so it was in the June revision to the plans where the lighting details were presented.
And I believe we had also been asked to provide lighting information in one of the engineering review letters, which is what led to the revision that was submitted before the June meeting to address the lighting.
Okay. So, if for the clarification from our planner that some of these comments had been put in because we just didn't do an additional report after every meeting. That's why they ended up here now, so that we understand that. Okay. Can I ask the same thing about the streetscape and the street furnishings, like where we're saying that there are two benches proposed? Was that also something that was just added here, but even though we discussed it in the past? That's on 3.2?
Yeah, actually, that is new. And I think maybe since Mr. Bauer is going to testify to some of there's some minor landscaping and site modifications under his jurisdiction that I believe he's about to testify to tonight.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Does anybody else, any other board members have any questions, or any the city professionals have any questions? All right, then we will open it up for public questions. And let's just have a reminder that the public questions can be only about what was testified about today. And if we stray, we're going to ask you to come back to on topic with one warning. And if that does not happen, we will be muting you, and we will announce the fact that we have done so. So please, one person at a time, one time up to the mic, one time up for questions for Mr. Handel.
Thank you, Barbara. And just for the record, I show 110 public attendees at this time, and it's 8:09 p.m. I'm going to call first on Dave Michelson. Mr. Michelson, please state your name and your address and go ahead and speak.
I don't think, oh, we're muted still?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, this is Ellen Michelson. I just had one quick question on the rendering from the
Address, please. Excuse me.
1501 Ocean Avenue, Unit 2407.
Thank you.
Sure. I just had a question in the, when we were looking at the first floor, I guess, a layout plan, there was something next to the pool that was called the outdoor, I think it's F&B. May I just ask what that is?
That's been previously testified to, not at this hearing.
Nothing, I'll just clarify, nothing on the interior of the building is changing. So the layout for the seating area that had been previously shown is exactly what it was before.
Oh, okay. I just thought that since the, we were looking at this plan, that.
F&B stands for food and beverage.
Thank you.
Ms. Michelson, did you have any other questions for Mr. Handel?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and next person I will call on is Cheryl. Cheryl, please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your questions.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Hammerschlag. I'm at 321 Sunset Ave, Unit 3B. And I had a question about the fence on the north side that you mentioned earlier in this meeting. I cannot tell from the plans provided what the height of that fence is.
It's unchanged from prior testimony.
Okay. Well,
I think, Mr. Handel, is it just over 7 feet, I think?
Yes, as it has been.
Thank you. That was all for me.
I'm sorry, did you have any other questions?
Nope, that was it for me.
Thank you very much. And the next caller that I will call upon is Nancy Del Pizzo. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. Please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your question.
Sure, and you pronounced my name correctly, thank you. My name is Nancy Del Pizzo, and I have a unit at 1501 Ocean Avenue, Unit 2501. I have a couple of questions. It's hard to tell from the rendering how high the first floor is. Does it go above the street lamps? Or is it at the top of the street lamp?
So the height of the building has not changed, and so that remains at around 15 feet 5 inches, 15 and a half feet from the elevation from the sidewalk to the Ocean Avenue to the roof deck.
Is that the height of the street lamp?
Tom Bauer, so that had been also previously testified to. So I think the street lamps may be slightly lower than that, but I can't tell. I can't talk about the lighting.
All right, thank you. Also, I just wanted to be clear. I think you said this. There's a series of rectangular windows that are now on the west side of the building facing Ocean Avenue. Just, can you confirm again? There's I don't know, it looks like more than 10, I think, but they will all be, the interiors will all be covered by curtains, correct?
There will be shades inside for privacy, yes.
Okay, so that you will not be able to see through, correct, because of the shades?
People could open their shades.
Okay. And maybe you can't answer this. On the Ocean Avenue side, there's foliage, grasses. But currently, when you walk down that street, it's accessible to walking, and what looks like the I-Star fence is a little bit pushed back to east toward the ocean. Is this area now that obviously you're not going to walk on because there looks like there's a little like a I don't.
Tom Bauer will show you the site, the current site plan, and we'll be able to answer your questions for that.
Is that grassland area owned by the developer, or did you need a variance or waiver to build it like that so that you can't?
That is property owned by the developer. It's an easement on the property where that garden is. But that Tom Bauer will explain that.
It's an easement, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Those were the only questions I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Mr. Handel, I'm so sorry. Can you please speak up when you answer the questions? We're having a little difficulty hearing you.
Sure. Is that better?
Oh, yes, that's so much better. Thank you very much. The next person I will call upon is Madeline Monaco. Madeline, please state your name and address and go ahead and speak.
Hi, I'm Madeline Monaco. I live at 1501 Ocean Avenue in Asbury Park. Okay, I have a few questions. I see this rendering from the Ocean Avenue side, but it's really hard to see head-on what those windows look like and what that upper level, where the upper level starts. Do you have a rendering that shows us head-on the glass opening, the door opening, as well as all of those windows? Because it's kind of an angular view.
There's that elevation there.
Okay, so at the top of that wall that's facing Ocean Avenue, where does the upper level begin? Where you'll have your chaise lounges and all of that stuff.
You can see the dashed line there.
Yeah. And at what height is that from the sidewalk?
15 feet 6 inches from the elevation of Ocean Avenue.
Okay. And then, so that is, it's still solid up above that 15 feet?
There's a solid portion there that goes up to approximately 19 feet, as you can see indicated on, we'll blow up the rendering so you can see that a little bit more clearly.
Thank you.
And then there's those dips, and we'll go back to the elevation again, which are approximately 16 inches down. So the chaises will be, the view, you won't have a direct view into the back of the chaises, but we comply with the articulation requirements under the WRP by having that up and down.
Okay, and then the wood slats below that are they're solid. There's no articulation.
Those are solid. Yes.
Solid. Okay, thank you. And then I know we've had several questions about what this looks like from the boardwalk side, and forgive us because it's been quite a long time since we've seen those plans, any artist's rendering of what that would look like. And I'm wondering why there isn't a requirement for transparency and fenestration on the boardwalk side, since that's also a public walkway. And I wonder if that was perhaps because the original plans that was submitted by the applicant had when the boardwalk had been removed and they were trying to bump out an area and have sort of a private beach area. Is that why there's no requirement for fenestration and transparency on the boardwalk side? I'm just thinking it looks like a fortress on that side.
Excuse me for the interruption. I think our planner answered that question.
I don't remember the answer. Sorry.
About the requirement that there was not the same requirement on the west side facing the boardwalk that there is on the east.
I'm asking why. Is there no requirement? It's a public walkway on that side as well?
She indicated it was not in the plan. There is no requirement in the plan, if I remember correctly.
And by plan, Mr. Shepherd, you're talking about the waterfront redevelopment plan.
WRP, correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably a flaw in the plan, but we'll leave it at that because I would think it's a public walkway and people should be able to see.
Please ask questions. Don't render an opinion until comment section.
Okay. I have a question about the lighting based on the testimony that was just given. So I understand that there was testimony given previously, but my question is, will the lights be shielded enough so as not to affect the building across the street on Ocean Avenue?
And Mr. Delaney did testify to that and was asked those questions and did provide answers very specifically as to the shielding of each and every light fixture that was proposed.
I heard that. My question is, will they be shielded enough so as not to affect the building across the street?
I'm not sure that the technical term, I don't know what you mean by the technical term enough. Mr. Delaney went through very specifically about the shielding, about how the lights would be pointed, towards the pool, how they would be fixed to minimize impacts. But I don't think that Mr. Handel can summarize that hours worth of testimony into a single answer.
I guess what I'm wondering is
not qualified to answer that question.
Sorry?
He's not qualified to answer that question. He's the architect. He's not going to give you an opinion on the lighting.
Will we have an opportunity to ask that question of other experts tonight?
I don't think so.
So we want an answer as to whether there will be any.
The witness who testified to those facts and matters has already testified at length. We're not recalling him.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Madeline. And the next person I will call upon is Ms. Pam Lamberton. Please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your questions.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Pam Lamberton, 321 Sunset Avenue. In the waterfront redevelopment plan, buildings built in this space between the boardwalk and Ocean Avenue are all considered pavilions. I also question why there are no design guidelines held on the boardwalk side as well as on the Ocean Avenue side.
I'm not sure if that's really a question for Mr. Handel.
That was testified to by the planner.
Are there any specific guidelines that you apply specifically to the boardwalk side?
They're not itemized in the waterfront redevelopment plan, but they're noted as pavilions, and the pavilions we all know have two sides. So I just thought it would be addressed in the redesign. Another question, in the southeast corner of the building are the two doors that have been previously testified to as being little used, and they would only be, I think the planning board actually asked these questions about when those doors would be used. And they said they were just for removing refuse and they wouldn't be used that often. But in this new drawing, that one door is labeled beach access. I was wondering if you could tell me what that is. What is it going to have a new use now?
I don't believe this plan has changed.
No, it has. The first plan didn't label that door as beach access.
I'm not aware of any changes to this plan.
I believe that door has always been there, Ms. Lamberton.
The door has always been there. You're absolutely right. But it was never labeled beach access. And I remember the planning board asking about it and being told it would only be used, early in the morning for refuse.
I think along those lines that there's the door there that goes directly into the trash room that's next to it.
Right, there are two doors there.
Mm-hmm.
One says BOH entry and one says beach access.
Mr. Handel, what does BOH stand for?
That stands for back of house. So that is for the removal of trash and recyclables.
This is Donna Miller, if I may. I'm looking at the original submission floor plan from April 16th, 2019. And one door is labeled beach access and the other is labeled BOH.
I'm sorry, the plan that I looked at didn't have that. I stand corrected. Thank you.
Sure.
So that will actually be accessed then from the building onto the boardwalk.
not directly onto the boardwalk, onto the easement on that side.
Right, just about a foot from the boardwalk. The design of the building includes that elevator shaft. Why does this building need an elevator?
For the handicapped.
But isn't the boardwalk level at the highest level?
There's an upper deck which has been testified.
So that's how you're, okay, I see. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And next person I will call upon is Robert Garcia. Please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hi, this is Robert Garcia. I live at 1501 Ocean Avenue. My question is, with the new windows that have been placed in the back of the building, will those windows be able to be opened by the occupants? And if they were, has a decibel reading study been done when that is fully occupied if people have windows open? Because now that the windows are there, it's going to create a significant amount of noise onto Ocean Avenue.
So if I could just start with Mr. Handel to answer the first half of the question, which is, do the windows open?
Yes, they need to. So the WRP requires casement windows, which basically by their definition need to be able to be opened.
And so in order to comply with the plan, we had to put in opening windows. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Which will create a significant amount of noise.
No, ask questions, not testify.
Will it create a significant amount of noise onto Ocean Avenue when those windows are open?
So we have previously testified that when it comes to any sound from the facility, that we have to comply with the state noise code and any applicable local ordinances. As far as the windows go, though, it was something that was requested by members of the public and is something that had to be done in order to comply with the redevelopment plan.
Has a study been done?
No.
Will that be done so that we understand the amount of noise that these windows are now creating in your new plan?
So the shutters previously opened as well. So there's no difference in the sound now versus the sound before.
Again, was a study done before, or will a study be done at all?
No. As a permitted use within the waterfront redevelopment plan, there are no requirements to complete a study. No business along the boardwalk is required to complete a study as to any impacts regarding sound. We are, however, required to comply with state code. It's actually something the planning board can't waive, even if we ask them to. And it's an ongoing obligation for the life of the project. So we will always have to comply with state code regarding sound levels emanating from this facility, just like every other business along the boardwalk and every other business in the state for that matter.
So with all of the pushback that you're getting for this project, do you feel that it's in the best interest of the project for you to do this study?
I don't think that's actually a question for Mr. Handel, but I will answer. We have complied with what has been asked of us and what is required under the redevelopment plan, and that does not involve doing a study as to sound.
So I guess that's a no, right?
I've answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Did you have any other questions? All right, thank you. And the next person we will call upon is Trish Zanaletto. Please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your questions.
Trish Satanato, 406 7th Avenue, Asbury Park. So we see the rendering of the front from looking at it from Ocean Avenue. What is it going to like from looking from the ocean to the boardwalk? Do we have a rendering of that?
Yes, that was previously submitted as Exhibit A52.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
No, that's okay. But it's previously A52 if you would like to look at it, and that has not changed.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's it.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, and the next person we will call upon is Ralph Michelli. Please excuse me if I'm not saying that correctly. Go ahead and ask your questions.
Yes, Ralph Mitchley, 1501 Ocean. I'd like to draw attention to questions I would like to pose about the windows that are now being proposed. The angle of this rendering, it's difficult to see, but when he was showing the architectural rendering, if you can go back to that drawing, I have a question. Yes.
Sure.
Can you enlarge that again, please? Thank you.
Sure. Hold on one second. I just noted before we neglected to specifically call this out as Exhibit A-57, and this was the east and west renderings. So just, I'm sorry for the record, Mr. Michelli, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay. Again, could you, thank you. You see your typical there for the window 3A2. I have a question. My understanding of what you're showing there is that there's a casement window to the left, which vents, as you testified. What is to the right? Is that an opaque panel or
No,
glass?
That is clear glass fixed panel.
Yeah, that's not clearly illustrated there.
Sure it is. That's the indication. Those are the architectural symbols that indicate.
Oh, well, we're not seeing 3A2. That's why I had to ask.
Okay, yeah. But those are the symbols that
there it is.
indicate, right. So it's part of that exhibit.
Okay, so but that's not venting. That's not required?
No.
Okay. At the top of that window where you have the wood going vertical, I'm not clear what's above that. Is that an open rail? Yeah, that, if you can go even larger on that top of that schematic.
Yes.
What is that?
So that's an open rail.
That is an open rail. So there's nothing opaque there.
No, so you can see the level of the floor, which is the dashed line.
Right.
And then there's the top of the parapet. And the parapet is articulated, with the stucco coming up, and then the dip of approximately 16 inches with the rail.
And what will the rail be made of, and what color or texture?
And so that rail will be metal, and the color will be white.
White metal. Okay. The lighting's been testified to. The only question I have, and it's similar to what Madeline was asking, if I'm not allowed to ask.
If we can go back to the rail detail. So those are there are cables that are infilling there. So
Okay.
sorry.
What's the vertical piece in the middle, right above that? What is that?
So that's a support for the cable.
Is that metal also? What does that mean?
Yes, it's a metal support.
And that'll be white as well?
So the cables, I'm sorry, will be stainless steel, and the metal will be white.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what the cables are made out of.
On the elevators tower, is the roof flush, or is there a parapet wall up there too?
So you can see the top of the bulkhead roof, and so there'd just be a coping at that point.
Okay, so it's basically flush. There's no parapet.
Correct.
Okay, I'll be looking at the top of that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, understood.
What type of roofing material, do you know?
I'm not sure if we've specified that roofing material yet.
Well, I'd be more interested in what color you're planning.
Sure, so I believe it's an EPDM roof.
So there's different colors though, sir.
And I think that, I think our intent is to use white, in order to, minimize the heat island effect of that roof.
Okay. Are there any structures above that, such as air conditioners or anything?
I believe all the mechanical is lower than that, so there'd be nothing above that.
Okay. The what I'm going to call a porthole window that's showing right to the right of the entrance. Thank you.
Mhm.
There's are those mullions? What's in the middle there?
Yeah, so those are glass divisions. Those would be muttons.
But nothing there vents.
Nothing there vents.
Okay. What is behind that? Is that open all the way through to the design, or is there a room there?
We can go to the plan there and show. So it's basically as you are coming into the elevator that would take you up to that upper deck.
Oh, that's the elevator. Okay. So you can't stand at the sidewalk, look through that porthole window to the ocean.
Sorry, could you repeat that question again?
If you're standing right where you have your hand there on the
Yes.
sidewalk, now looking through the porthole window to the east, can you see the ocean?
No.
It'll be completely opaque. Okay.
Correct. If from that porthole, yes, it will be open. You will not see the ocean.
The statement I think you made was that all four sides of this building were stucco. I put that in quotes as when you said it, and then
No,
later
so that's I don't believe I said that. Yeah, so the 20-foot return on the north side is stucco. So the Ocean Avenue facade is stucco.
Yeah, I got that when the mayor was asking his questions, and
Yes.
like the mayor, is there no rendering of the east? I'm sorry, the east and or north or south sides to show more graphically what that looks like?
So the rendering of the side that faces the boardwalk, so I guess that'd be the east side, was previously submitted and marked as A52. And that was submitted at a prior.
Not the north and south sides.
So the
north and south sides are changed. They have stucco. They're definitely changed.
Right, so just going one by one. The east side is previously submitted as A52. Mr. Handel, can you see the south side of the building in the perspective that you prepared? That's been marked as
Right.
A59.
Right. So you can see the stucco cladding.
Okay, now right there where you're at, just a little further back where the indent comes out, what is above that? Is that a railing?
No, you can see you're seeing the trellis structure that you can
No, not there. Further down to the ocean. There. What is that?
That would be
that is a railing for the
Well, that's what I asked. Is that clear glass? What is that? What is that made out of?
We're just zooming in for you. Hold on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's cable rail.
Okay, so are those vertical posts white metal again?
Yes, and you can see the cable.
And the top,
If we zoom in a little bit, you can see it more clearly.
What is the rail on the top, the handrail? That doesn't look white.
So that's a wood cap.
A wood? What kind of wood? Color?
It's the cedar.
Is it going to be stained? It's not white.
So it's sealed.
Okay. And does that, I'm a little confused. Does that wrap around the whole east side? I know you don't want to show the east elevation. I got that. But is there any change to that? Was that the way it was before?
That's the way it was before.
Oh, it was. All right. I believe that's all my questions.
Thank you.
And it's not that we don't want to show the east elevation. It's in the pack. It's A52. It's previously been submitted.
It would have been helpful to have it in this presentation, however.
So all of the applicants' exhibits are on the website, the same place where you pulled up these exhibits. They're all available there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michelli. Okay, and I only show one more hand raised, and the name is AP Resident. Please state your real name and your address, and go ahead and ask your questions. I believe we're having some trouble unmuting you. Just give us 1 second. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next person because I believe this is probably someone on their computer who is also on their phone. So let's go to the next hand raised, which is City Historian. Please state your name and your address and go ahead and ask your question.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Warner Baumgartner, 402 Fifth Avenue. Hi. I'm curious about how the spaces around this building are interpreted. What is to the south of this building?
To the south of the building?
What's to the south of this building? What space? How would you characterize that space?
The walkway?
Well, there's more than that, right? What's beyond that?
So there's an empty lot there currently, I believe.
Oh, okay. Is that a development parcel, or is that green acre space or public land?
That's not part of the discussion this evening, where we have to concentrate on what's been presented by Mr. Handel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How would you characterize the boardwalk? Would you characterize that as public space?
That's an improper question.
It is?
Yes, he's testified as to the architectural details of his building and compliance with the redevelopment plan. He didn't testify about what's public space and what's not.
Well, I do recall hearing testimony about lighting and about...
No, he told you that somebody else testified about the lighting details, and that's who we referred to. Ask him about his testimony and what he testified to. You got every right to cross-examine him on those issues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Counselor. Just from a question about procedural aspects right now, is this the only witness we're getting tonight, or are we getting...
No.
Who else will be testifying tonight?
Next, we'll be calling up Mr. Tom Bauer, who is our landscape architect. We'll be recalling him to describe the changes in landscaping.
Okay, so that's okay. And then the discussion about the lighting, is the lighting going to be discussed?
No, the lighting has not changed. The lighting was previously testified to by Mr. Delaney in great detail. There was cross-examination and public questioning as to the details on that lighting previously, and none of that has changed.
Thank you for that clarification, because there was a discussion earlier by board professionals and board members about those topics. I was curious if we're getting additional testimony. Okay, so what's the primary reason for only showing the Ocean Avenue facade?
Just for clarification, Exhibit A52 is the boardwalk side that was previously submitted that has not changed.
Okay, so the reason is that has effectively not changed at all. Okay.
The boardwalk side has not changed, correct.
Okay. The same answer would apply then to the north facade and south facade. They're not being specifically rendered because they have not changed. Is that the answer?
Let's start one by one. Mr. Handel, can you see the south side of the building in this perspective?
Okay. What has changed there, if anything, on the south side?
The change of material from the wood boards to stucco. That's all.
On the north side, has there been any change on the north side from previously presented
For
information?
that 20 feet indicated on the plan from the previous wood cladding to stucco.
Okay, so the north side has changed. Why was a decision made not to provide a rendering of that if it's in fact changed?
So before we get there, Mr. Handel, is the north side of the building shown on what's been marked as A57. Rick, if you could pull up A57. It was the ground floor plan, sorry.
Yes.
Is the majority of the side on the north side fencing?
Yes, and you can see the indications for the stucco material on the first 20 feet and the indications of what is indicated as the fencing material, as rendered as fencing material.
Right. This has been discussed earlier. I'm asking specifically about a rendering, a visual representation of what this would look like, not a plan. This is a plan view. I'm wondering why the decision was made to change something and then not provide a rendering of it as it would appear.
Hold on.
An oversight. If it's an oversight, just say it's an oversight.
You go to the exhibit that was marked A8 previously. A8 showed the north elevation.
Right.
And
Mr.
the majority, Mr. Handel, is the majority of that rendered elevation, the part that shows the fencing, the same?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The portion of A8 that previously showed wood for the first 20 feet, if you were to do a new rendering of that side, would you be replacing that first 20 feet of wood with the same stucco that you see on the front of the building?
Yes.
Okay. I'm still not getting an answer. Counselor, maybe you could jump in here. I'm just asking why a rendering was not provided. If it was an oversight, it was an oversight. If there was some logical reason why a rendering was not provided, I'd like to hear it.
So it is a technical issue. The drawing was filed with this, the yellow. There's not a rendering of that view, but there is an elevation that was filed with the city.
We have that.
We're trying. We can't find it on the server.
We can pull it up. It's been filed with the city. We did not have it pre-marked as an exhibit for this evening, but it was filed with the board.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to get to the facts here. You know, I mean, things happen, mistakes happen, things get lost. It'd be nice to know the facts. Thank you. So what would you say drives the architectural standards here? Is it, in fact, the redevelopment plan that drives the architectural standards, or is it just your professional expertise as a world-renowned architect to interpret what would be a good design or not?
It's both. Honestly, it's both of those things. So that it's each municipality's responsibility to create a regulatory frame to guide development within the city. It's our professional responsibility to create the best architecture that we can that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just about what I would like to do in order to satisfy my own ego. It's about trying to come up with something that will work within the regulatory frame, that will be a good addition to the fabric of the city, and that will actually help this Asbury Park in future development. We're proud of what we've made here. If we considered the suggestions that had come out of the last public hearing to be wrong and anathema to us, we would not have followed them. So we are not, but there is a regulatory frame that the city has established.
Okay. So you're quite familiar. You've, I guess, read in depth the architectural standards of the redevelopment plan?
We have read the WRP, yes.
Okay. Have you read the section titled Building Frontages? Do you recall seeing that?
Are you asking if he's memorized the?
Yes, but I've seen, yes, but so so would you like us to pull that up for you?
Well, if it refreshes your memory, you testified that you've read it and you're familiar with it. If it's helpful to you to refer to it, on page 63 of the Waterfront Redevelopment Plan, building frontages.
We've had testimony by planning on what's considered a front.
Testimony by planning. Only you've testified, to my knowledge, at this point.
No, Donna Miller opined about her comments and about the frontage of the building
Okay.
on Ocean Avenue versus the facade on the east side.
Perhaps both parties then should refresh their memories on page 63 where it states building frontages. If I could refresh your memory, do you recall reading that the frontage of a building is a primary contribution to pedestrian activity? The frontage is that elevation which faces a public street or public open space. Frontages are sometimes called facades. Do you recall that reference to public open space or frontage and a facade?
Are you asking for Mr. Handel's legal interpretation as to a particular provision?
Just asking if Donna or Mr. Handel recalls reading that particular definition in the regulatory document.
This is Donna Miller. Mr. Baumgartner, I have opened to page 63, and I'm reading that.
Okay. Building frontages, paragraph 2.
Can you tell me what about Mr. Handel's testimony tonight?
Well, okay. Should I engage in a dialogue? I'm a little reluctant to engage in a dialogue.
No, I'm not going to let it go too far.
Well, right, but I'm trying to find out what exactly the question is that Mr. Handel testified about that this is tied to.
Well, it's regarding your testimony and his assertion that this is not applicable to other than the street frontage, when clearly the document says that frontages are anything on a public open space, of which the north, east, and south sides are public open space of this site. It's very clear in paragraph 2 what the intent was. I'm just trying to reconcile why your testimony contradicts that and why there's a reluctance to talk about creating a better architectural standard for the north, east, and south sides, considering it's spelled out right here in the Waterfront Redevelopment Plan. That's my reasoning. So I'll go on. If I ask another question, it would be, do you recall reading that blank walls shall be avoided, specifically in the redevelopment plan, with regard to building frontages?
If that's for me, yes.
You do recall that? Okay.
Wait a minute. I'm not going to allow this to be converted.
Yeah, I think I'm being uncomfortable having a discussion, Jack.
Excuse me. Let me finish. I'm not going to allow this to turn into a cross-examination of our planner. This is specifically designed to cross-examine the witness himself.
Okay? I understand. Okay. Absolutely. I didn't want to go there, but...
So then let's stop going there and let's get back to the architect. I'm sure during the comment section, you will be able to bring all this up and state your truth and state your case. But right now, I get you have an opinion and you're entitled to it, but let's not air it out now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was kind of being steered in that direction. Okay. So, Mr. Handel, do you think that a bare white building is a good across the street bookend to the building on the other side. How does this building relate to the building on the other side of the street as required in the waterfront redevelopment plan?
You already testified to all that. Were you listening? Didn't you hear him?
He testified about the windows mimicking the pattern.
Right.
I'm discussing the color choice, a stark white building.
I didn't say stark. Stark is your word, not.
Okay, a white building as contrasted to the building across the street.
With wood accents.
Mhm.
Yes, we believe it is. We actually believe that it creates a good contextual relationship with the building across the street.
Okay, that's fair enough. Why is there no rendering or view of the building across the street? And there never has been in prior submissions.
So actually, if I can direct your attention to the report that had been created by Ms. Miller, there are pictures in there. There were also pictures, I believe our planner had submitted of other buildings in the area. But
in Donna's report?
In Donna's report.
That's not submitted by the applicant.
Correct.
The waterfront redevelopment plan requires the applicant to submit such views.
There was also a previous exhibit provided by our planner that talked about the contextual relationship to other buildings in the area.
But no rendering, correct? Or photographic view of the building across the street.
There were photographs. Mr. Hughes previously provided planning exhibits that included photographs.
I don't believe so, but we can go on. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Yes, actually, I'm sorry. So exhibit A49 showed photographs of surrounding pavilions and had a contextual map.
Does it show the building across the street, across Ocean Avenue?
There's an aerial that shows the location of all the buildings.
So there's no facade view. There's no front-on rendering or photograph of that building, the context of that neighborhood.
That has been admitted into evidence in Ms. Miller's board report.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to propose at this time to take a 5-minute break for everyone. Can I get a motion to have a break from the board?
I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
This is Mike Manzel, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 5-minute break starting now.
Yep.
It is 9:05 p.m. I will now take roll. Mayor John Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman Yvonne Clayton.
Here.
Michael Manzella.
Here.
Jennifer Sauter.
Here.
Alexis Taylor.
Here.
Eric Galpo.
Here.
Rick Lambert.
Here.
And Barbara Krizak.
Here.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we can continue with public questions. And before we begin again, I just want to remind everyone that unless your hand is raised, we will not call upon you. So please make sure if you have questions to either click on the raise hand button on your computer or dial *9 on your telephone keypad. And the next caller will be Mike Surzek. Please go ahead and state your name and address and speak.
Yes, it's Mike Surzek, 305 8th Avenue. I had a question about the color of the stucco. Have you guys actually picked that out? Is it white? It looks kind of beige.
It's white.
It is white. Is there a specific name of the color?
Not yet.
What kind of maintenance requirements would there be on a stark white stucco building?
So we're still working on the exact specification of that stucco. It would need to be repainted and retouched up, every so often, and then it needs to meet the requirements of the WRP, which have limitations on the finishes that are actually allowed.
Okay, I noticed there's a lot of metal handrails and probably some lighting. I know you're not the lighting designer, but and probably on the windows and such with a white stucco building. Generally, after a certain period of time, especially being at the ocean, you're probably going to get some rust. Is there, with the metal finishes and the handrails and the lighting, are you guys expecting, some rust on the white stucco, and is that going to increase the frequency that, the maintenance and touch-up paints and all that stuff is going to have to occur?
So the cable rails will be stainless, right? So they typically have not been, the cable rail systems have not been prone to rusting. Nothing is foolproof in a fully saline environment, as you've noticed. The window surrounds, and again, we are planning on doing proper maintenance of the building. Our owner is committed to proper upkeep.
Okay, that's all I had for now.
Okay, thank you. And the next caller is TR. Please state your name and address and go ahead and ask your questions. You are unmuted. Can you hear us? Caller TR, we cannot hear you. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next caller. I'm going to mute them. And caller TR, we cannot hear you. If you are on a computer, please try calling with a telephone, and vice versa. If you are on a telephone, please try through a computer. All right, so next I will call upon Ernest McNolly. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, just quickly, Mr. Architect, are you aware that when you speak so lowly or almost whisper, a lot of what you're saying we can't hear? Are you aware of that?
No, I will try to. I've just adjusted my microphone. Can you hear me more clearly now?
Well, no, but I mean, you've said that previous times, but you never did it. But anyway, let's move on. I hope you can hear me because I'm right next to a beach club about 500 feet north of your beach club that you're planning. And of course, the noise is unbearable, so I have to close my windows and be able to be heard by you.
Ask a question.
I'm saying, are you
You're testifying.
aware?
You ask questions of the witness.
Okay. Have you, relative to this beach club, I guess we're calling it a beach club, you talked about your acumen of designing things all over the world. Have you designed a beach club similar to this?
Rolling through. So this is my first beach club.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you. I appreciate that. And in designing your first one, is it usually a procedure of an architect design, the main one, that you kind of take into account possible other structures nearby, including another beach club, which is about, I think it's 1,000 feet north of what you're proposing.
directly, and it mimics a lot of what you're designing. You know, outdoor, indoor, walls.
You're testifying. What's the question?
So, have you designed anything like the other ones nearby? In other words, okay, let me be very
Let him answer the question.
Okay, go ahead.
You asked the question, let him answer it.
Okay.
I didn't understand your question, actually.
All right, Mr. Serpico, so what do I do now? Restate the question?
Yeah, I guess so. He didn't understand it.
Okay. So, have you, in your design of this beach club, you indicated that it's your first one, and I appreciate that. But what I'm asking, have you considered other similar things nearby, which is incumbent, I think, upon an architect to use as a comparison? Meaning, the Allenhurst Beach Club is 1,000 feet north. It's almost identical. It's on the boardwalk. It has access to the beach.
I think your question is, did he consider those other? Stop.
Okay.
You got to ask questions, and you can't characterize the form of testimony. And he can only ask questions about what the man testified to. It's a fair question that you're asking him if he ever designed another beach club before he said no. And I think your question now is, did you take into consideration any of the other beach clubs in the area when designing this beach club?
And the answer is we had numerous conversations with our clients in order to establish the program for this particular beach club in a way that they felt would be an economically viable business for this project. And that's how the program for this project was established.
Okay, so what you're saying is you did confer with other similar entities, I guess. I'm having trouble hearing you from this area, but
can everyone else hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Yes.
Oh, really? Just fine. That's why everybody's complaining, but just fine. So, okay, my next question. You replaced the shutters with windows, and I think you testified that they're approximately 5 foot by 6 foot?
Correct.
It's pretty big, right? Right?
There's a requirement to have a certain amount of fenestration underneath the waterfront redevelopment plan on those frontages, and so these comply with those requirements.
Okay, I think I heard you. It's just this darn beach club noise here. But anyway, so are they like thermopane windows, double storm? Like for what storm ratage are they? Like 5-year, 10-year storm, 100-year, 50-year storm? They're quite large, correct? Are they single pane? Are they multi-pane? Are they a jalousie open? Are they swing open?
So that's been previously testified to. There's a casement light there, so it's a casement window with a fixed light as indicated in the plan, and it is an insulated light.
Okay, and you did indicate it's under the control of the cabana person, whoever rents or is a member and has that cabana, correct?
Can open that window, yes.
They can. Okay, and you did testify that when the windows open, that they would lose their privacy, correct?
I did not testify that.
Okay, will they lose their privacy with the window wide open?
Not necessarily.
Why is that?
Because there are shades.
There are shades. I don't understand. If the window's wide open, what difference do shades make?
So
don't answer that.
We're getting
Don't answer
from the architecture here as to the interior.
Okay, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Say you don't want to. We'll move on. So, but the actual control of the window, meaning opening it and closing it, is up to the cabana owner. And I would say 5 by 6 window casement. That's going to be.
Like,
so I'm asking you, what percentage of the wall of the cabana, the back of the wall, is now going to be window? Meaning, when you're in that cabana and you have that 5 by 6 window, I mean, how big is the cabana itself? Or does it mean like the whole back wall, the whole western wall of the cabana on the west side is going to be all glass window with a shade on the inside for privacy, but the cabana can, I guess,
turn a handle and it opens up. Is that correct?
No.
It's not correct.
So if we could.
So who controls the window?
No,
The cabana.
This question's been asked and answered. It's a window
Okay.
opened by anyone.
Okay. Anyone?
Anyone who can open a window can open the window. If they're in the room, it's a window.
You mean if they're in the cabana?
Sure. If they're in the room with the window.
Okay, I don't want to get into semantics, but anyway. So in other words, what if who's ever in charge of the window in the room, right, opens it up wide, and then leaves? Who would be responsible, like in a sudden storm event, to close that window?
So
I mean, are there provisions for all this?
I appreciate your concern that rain may get into the cabanas, but I think that is.
I didn't say rain. I'm talking about wind. Wind is more damaging than rain.
I think that is far as the planning board's jurisdiction to consider how wind may impact the interior of a room.
Okay, so you don't want to tell me if there's provisions, if the window open is left unattended and a sudden windstorm comes, how that window gets closed, because it could become dangerous.
Mr. McNally, that is beyond the planning board's jurisdiction.
I understand.
Another question.
Okay, I'll move on.
Okay.
So now, the shades that you're putting on the inside of the window, which is in the room or the cabana, are completely opaque. Are they like that type that's kind of, it blocks out the light almost 100%?
Again, the planning board does not have jurisdiction to pick the fabric.
Okay. What is the nature of those shades? What are they?
Again, the planning board does not have jurisdiction to pick the fabric for the window treatments.
The planning board? I'm talking to the planner the architect who picks it.
No, that's not.
That they're there for screening purposes.
I know. Am I able to ask the architect who placed the window and placed the shades, what kind of shades are there? Meaning, are they complete blackout shades? It's kind of a yes or no question. I don't think it's a trick question.
Again,
it's irrelevant to a site plan application.
Okay. But I thought I'm talking to an architect, not a site planner.
This is a site plan application. You're asking questions in connection with site plan approval for details that were offered by an architect. He's not there to answer that type of question. It's irrelevant.
Okay, so I am talking to the architect who changed the plan, made these large windows, and included some kind of blockout shades, whatever they're called, on the inside. That's all. Is that what you designed, sir?
The shades are not part of this application.
They're not part. Okay. Okay, that's an answer. Let me move on. So, at any time, will these windows to the public in a public area walking on the west side, let's say on the sidewalk, conceivably appear to the public that it's a solid wall again? Because with the window closed and some kind of device or shade on the inside, to the public, it's almost like a solid wall again.
I have to object here. There is no that the planning board would go around asking anyone who owns a business or who has a residential structure in the waterfront what it's going to look like if you peeked in their windows as you walked by. That's not in the planning board's jurisdiction.
Wait a minute. Maybe you're I don't know who you are, but maybe you're a peeper. I'm not.
Okay. Mr. McNally.
I resent the fact that you call me.
McNally,
I resent the fact that you call me a
We got to
peeper.
move on.
All right.
Way off.
I'm sorry, Mr. McNally, I muted you. Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Mr. McNally, ask the questions that are relevant to the testimony of the witness. And continue, by all means. Nobody's accusing you of anything. I wouldn't think of such things. Let's just move on. Go.
So the public walking by on the west sidewalk and I'm asking this of the architect, from the public's point of view, the window closed and whatever is done on the inside, I don't know what it is, you don't have to tell me, but is there any time where it could appear to the public that it's almost like a solid wall? It's kind of an aesthetic question.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Okay, so there is a time, no matter what happens with those windows, the public would have some kind of visual perception through, so it doesn't seem like just a blank wall.
I don't believe that if you have shades inside a window that it appears as a solid wall. People are, and again, it's not within the scope of this application to discuss the shades.
Okay, I understand. And of course, when you redesigned the west wall, you indicated that you wanted it to be very much in line with the public comments, et cetera, and the powers that be, and the owners, et cetera, et cetera. And can I ask you, when you met on this redesign, did you ever meet with any members of the public?
No, we met with, we discussed.
Okay, that's an answer. Okay, thank you.
Finish his answer.
Would you let me please?
Well, you said no. That's enough.
It doesn't matter. Now, that's not all he has to say. Let him answer.
We reviewed.
That's what you want to hear, but that's not what he has to say.
We reviewed the public.
Go ahead.
We reviewed the public testimony and basically decided to proceed with an application that would be in full conformance with the waterfront redevelopment plan, in line with some of the comments we heard with negative reactions to the shutters and the vines.
Okay, so your answer is still no. You never, after the
don't characterize his answer, and don't tell him what his answer is.
Mr. McNally,
All right, let me move on. Let me move on. Let me move on. Okay. The choice of color. Okay, I heard you say you don't want to characterize, and there are lots of, I don't know if this sounds correct.
I don't want you to characterize his answer.
Well, everybody seems to be asking what shade of white, and I think the last answer I heard was from the architect, it hasn't been decided yet. And was that your answer?
Yes, we have not selected the exact shade of white.
Okay, thank you. That was your answer. So I guess. Okay. So it hasn't been decided. Okay. Okay. All right. You did talk about some changes on the north side and the south side, didn't you?
I did not talk about any changes on the north side.
Okay, so there are no changes on the north side.
I did not talk about any changes on the north side.
Okay. On the south side, did you talk about any changes?
I'm sorry, Mr. Handel.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. So we talked about the change of the material for to stucco, as clearly indicated on the plans on the north and south side.
Oh, okay. All right. So. Yes, so you did talk about the changes, and one of them was the color. And so now, as far as I'll ask you, is there anything more than just in the family of white at this time that you can offer?
No.
Just white. That's the color it's going to be, white?
At this time, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Moving up top, you talked about an EDPM roof, correct?
EPDM.
EPDM, I'm sorry. And I guess everyone knows that's a rubber roof, and it's like a bicycle tire. And in fact, that's what you're installing on the roof, correct?
That is what we are installing on the elevator roof, yes.
Okay, and of course, the elevator roof is not anything for any public occupancy, right? It's just above the shaft that's probably 10 feet or 15 feet above the actual roof, correct?
Yes.
I mean, there's never going to be anyone walking on that rubber roof up on top of the elevator shaft, correct? Except to service it.
Only for maintenance, that is correct.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now, when you come down from the elevator shaft onto the actual, I guess it's the second floor, that roof area, that deck, or whatever the second floor is, does that have any kind of EDPM on it, or
So we
Rubber roof?
So that I didn't testify to that, and that's not part of my testimony.
Okay, all right, let me move on. Okay. So I thought when you testified about the roof, you were talking only about on the top of the elevator shaft.
Correct. I didn't.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Relative to the east doors, are you saying that from the start and from the beginning, it was always offered that both doors, I guess they're glass doors, on the northeast side of the building were always in all plans along the way till tonight labeled one for, I guess, refuse removal and intake and out, and one for beach access.
Mr. Magnoli, Ms. Miller already
Okay.
pointed out that the doors are on the south side of the building, and
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that.
she read the labels from the original plans, and they are
Okay.
considered the labels of the plans filed now.
Okay. All right. So then, Mr. Architect, is it safe to say that in the design of this building, that people will go from the inside some way in a hallway or whatever, a vestibule, and they can actually exit the beach access building, I guess, onto the public walkway and then onto the boardwalk and then onto the beach? Is that how it works?
Yes. And through that door labeled beach access. Yes, that's what beach access.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you mentioned about public comments, and you clarified how you dealt with the public comments. You reviewed all the comments, etc. But you're aware that when you're questioned about the architecture, let's say on the west side of the building, by the expert, I guess, counter person, I guess, Mr. Lieberman, the lawyer, you are aware that he is kind of, like Mr. Rodriguez testified, not really on your side. Is that correct?
Hey, don't answer that.
That's
All right, don't answer. Okay, I'll move on. Forget the question. I withdraw it. Okay. You recall tonight being questioned about the particular changes by Mr. Lieberman tonight. I'm sure you do. So now here's my question.
You just asked and answered your own question.
Okay, then you're aware of the questioning by Mr. Lieberman tonight relative to the changes on the west side.
Which specific
What's
question
the
are you
question?
referring?
I'm sorry.
Well, he asked a few questions.
Mr. Lieberman asked questions. Yes, what's the next question?
Okay, so the next question is, in your opinion, do you feel that Mr. Lieberman, representing, I guess, the opposition or whatever, to whatever you did on the west wall, that there were enough questions? I mean, I thought it was just like a...
Sorry, we're not here to talk about, ask and ask questions
about Mr. Lieberman.
Well, no, what I'm saying is the lawyer talked about going to Florida for a dance.
Stop. Don't ask.
All right, well, cut me off. I just find it odd that a lawyer talks about...
Mute him, please.
Mr. Magnoli, you've been muted.
Let's move on. And now he wants to argue with me. Move on. You can't ask questions about Mr. Lieberman. Move on. Next witness, please, or next cross-examiner.
Okay, next I will call on Stacy and Jeff Lusso. Please go ahead and speak.
Hello, my name is Jeff Lewisad, 1501 Ocean Avenue. I wanted to follow up on some questions earlier with regard to sound and the sound study, specific from an architectural standpoint. Like a lot of places in Asbury Park, both 6th and 7th Avenue is a bit of a wind tunnel. I think one of the biggest wind tunnels in Asbury due to the dwellings that exist on, frankly, all sides. Today, other areas such as Berkeley has music playing at their pool. So from an architectural standpoint, my question is regards to the soundproofing, both inside and out. And from an architectural perspective, if you're using any specific soundproofing materials inside the dwelling and also for the outside areas. And if the architect specifically had kind of walked those streets to understand how sound carries a bit different in those areas of town than, say, other areas on the north and south sides of town.
So as testified previously, we have not done any sound studies. We understand the obligation it's to comply with all applicable regulations.
Okay, but specifically to the materials you're going to be using to soundproof both the inside and outside, has that been decided at this point?
There are no specific soundproofing specifications developed at this point in time.
Will there be? I think, both from a public and from a residential perspective, is that something that will be addressed in future meetings?
I'll just interject, not in future meetings, no. The requirements involving sound are statewide requirements. They are ongoing requirements, and the board doesn't have jurisdiction to approve or deny or waive the sound requirements. They are ongoing state requirements. And the city has the ongoing ability to enforce sound violations, just as they would for any of the pavilions or any of the businesses or even the residences within the waterfront redevelopment area and the entire city.
So would you say that it's specific to building code? I understand what you're saying regarding, folks playing music or whatnot, but I'm talking specifically about the building and use of materials. This is, will this be at least to building code on the redevelopment plan, or would you say higher, due to the fact that it is, like I said, kind of in a wind tunnel area? Not that most of the beach isn't, but.
So the state code, it's not a matter, when I talk about the state sound and noise code, it's not a matter of materials, it's a matter of impact. And it has to do with measuring sound at specific locations off the property and at different times of day, and both sound in terms of various different measurements. So it's not a matter of requiring certain materials to be used. It's a matter of whether the result is a noise that is louder than what is permitted by state law. And that is something the planning board, if we came here today and asked the planning board to change those rules to make them different for us, we couldn't do that. The same rules apply to everyone statewide.
How will that be measured?
So the state code has provisions for how it would be measured, as far as how someone would measure that impact, and that is within the jurisdiction of the city to enforce for any business in town.
Okay, and just a follow-up question. My wife and I just moved there in March, so this was a pretty large surprise to us. I realize this might not be a question for here, not to the architect, but can somebody just kind of review exactly where we are in this process and what needs to happen from the perspective of this building either going up or not?
So just briefly at the beginning, and I know this is slightly off topic, but Mr. Serpico, if you don't mind, I did indicate there's been a number of hearings. They are available on APTV through their YouTube channel. This board has jurisdiction over the site plan, and at some point when testimony has concluded, this board will vote whether to approve or deny the requested site plan. This application is for preliminary and final major site plan approval, now without any waivers, and it is for a permitted use. At that point, if there is an approval, we would still need to submit plans to the building department, who would review to see if they are compliant with the uniform construction code as far as specific building materials and structural.
Thank you. I'm Stacy Lewisop, Jeff's wife, 1501 Ocean Avenue. There are available site plans to be reviewed on what you just stated on that site?
Sure. So on the website, all of the applicant's exhibits and all of the board's exhibits and all of the objectors exhibits should have been uploaded. They are also available for public inspection by contacting the board secretary, who can make arrangements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's it for us.
Okay, I do not show any other person with their hand raised. And the one person that has their hand raised, again, we did clarify twice during the meeting that questions will only be asked once by the same person. So I'm sorry, you cannot ask again. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, we have our next witness.
Yes, Mr. Bauer. Mr. Bauer, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Okay, perfect. There you are.
Can't see him.
I'm sorry, Moore here. Looking at the time, I know it's impossible to say how long Mr. Bauer's testimony is going to be. I know we're not going to get through all the public questions tonight and everything. So should we start and then reopen it, or should we just stop now when there's a good break?
Mayor, Mr. Bauer's testimony should be less than 5 minutes. And so I think we would be able to hear from members of the public that have been waiting. So I would like to push on if possible.
Okay, I believe you're right. His testimony will be 5 minutes. I believe the questions are going to be a lot longer than that. And I'm not staying up to 11 or 12 tonight. So I'm going to leave it up to the board what they want to do. And I have no problem with Mr. Bauer starting. And then I guess we'll have to replay it whenever the next hearing is, and then go to the questions. But there's no way we're going to get through all these questions tonight, in my estimation.
Mr. Mayor, the questions should be limited to what Mr. Bauer actually testifies about, which is going to be very limited. So I think at this point, given that we've gone many months, we'd like to have Mr. Bauer testify, and then we can see how long it goes from there.
Correct. We've gone many months, so I'm not looking to rush it through at the last second. Again, I'm going to leave it up to the chairperson and the board to decide.
I'd like to ask the board how they feel about us continuing on today, which may go past the 10 o'clock time frame, maybe 10:30, and call it at that point. I'd be happy to take a roll on what people think.
I actually have a question, Barbara, and it may be semantic, but if this is only a site plan application at this point, where does the design fall into? We were reviewing the design to review the design exception.
Mm-hmm.
Who determines whether this design is in conformance with the master plan? Is that the TRC who would have done that prior to its arrival if there were no design exceptions? Or does this board make that determination from the design perspective now?
I will, I can answer, or if that's something that Jack, if you'd like to.
Ken, the master plan is not addressed with this. This is done in the context of the redevelopment plan.
Understood.
And so the initial design of the project would, of course, have to be approved by the redevelopment agency, which is the mayor and council, with input from the TRC, which it was.
Which it was.
Right. It came over to us. Not only did it have site plan approval, a site plan application, but initially it had some design exceptions, which, due to feedback from the public and comments from the board and various hearings that we had, through the various hearings we had, a redesign was submitted. And at this point, the applicant has taken the position, and it appears that our planner has taken the position, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, that there are no design exceptions per se remaining. Therefore, it's whittled down to a pure site plan application, which is applied to the site plan rules and regulations contained in the WRP and any underlying ordinances that would apply. You wouldn't get in. We wouldn't get into
Right.
a discussion of whether or not it's consistent or inconsistent with the city master plan.
No, the WRP. Who's
Okay.
determining if these design, like, you know, and I'm
Yes.
I'm
Go
sure
ahead.
that I'm sure that Donna is, you know, is competent to make the decision about whether or not this is compliant. But if we're only reviewing site plan aspects, then Mr. Handel's testimony about design seems
No, it would be relevant.
wonderful, seems great, it's relevant, and we should hear it and we should see it. But to what extent does the public questioning bear relevance to what our jurisdiction on this application, which is only on site plan?
Well, I think the public has a right to comment. Certainly,
Of course.
the public has a right to ask questions of any witness that testifies before any board.
Of course.
Under oath. So the questions would have to be limited in scope to the testimony of the witness. In this case, Mr. Handel's testimony was due to the changes that were made to the plan to bring the plan more in conformance with the WRP.
Agreed. I understand that, but we are not approving the design. We're not approving any design exceptions. The board, not myself as a currently non-voting member on this application, the board is not approving or denying design exceptions in this case, only site plan.
But they are approving the design, that they do have to make a finding as to whether or not the design complies with the provisions of the waterfront redevelopment plan. Because if they don't,
I think that's my fault. You answered my question there.
Yeah,
so the board must make a finding about the nature of this specific presented design in relevance to the WRP.
Right.
The planner has recommended that it does conform with that.
Applicant has taken a position they don't have any further design exceptions, and that this plan conforms to the WRP. And
so
our planner is
will include a finding that it is consistent with the WRP.
Within the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the board will make a determination. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I feel like sometimes we end up going down this rabbit hole when we have to keep our eye on, you know,
I agree.
the design, we should hear comment, and we should continue to work collaboratively together to move the design forward, but we have to realize that the design we get to make a determination about.
Yes.
If I could, this is Donna. And absolutely, our office takes a position based on our review. We consult with the architects in our office as to how we think the applicant's redesign has addressed our concerns within the scope of those design criteria in the WRP. If board members disagree, you know, I certainly respect your, you know, credentials. You know, if you guys find that, you know, I can give you examples of what represents international modern architecture.
Yeah, no, I understand. And, you know,
if the board says, no, we don't think they've really hit it, you can say, we don't think you've really hit it. You can ask for the design exception and prove it through that process, right? Show us the positive and negative. Otherwise, you're satisfied with the alterations or modifications that they've done in order to meet that criteria. And that's the finding you're going to make. Like Jack says, that's your finding of fact. You change the window opening so that, you know, they go from one thing to another thing, and that, yes, satisfies that criteria. You change the surface finish from wood to stucco, we agree that satisfies it. It looks international modern now. So, you know, when we get to that point, hopefully that's how the resolution is going to sound.
Okay. You know, it is, I think it's something that we should be concerned about as a board, to hear applicants tell us that they've removed creative elements from their applications in order to avoid the regulatory process. I think that's a concern.
not what they did.
Well, not to avoid it, to move it forward without exception.
Well, it just, for clarification, we need, in order to, if the waterfront redevelopment plan gives standards.
Yes, but no, I understand that.
And we have complied with the standards, and the public had significant amounts of comment about the wood and the shutters, and so we listened to the public and we designed to meet the criteria in the plan. And I'm sure there are people who think that the original design was perhaps the better design, but there were also plenty of people who did not like the original design, and ultimately the decision was made to revise the design to comply with the plan.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay, more. Then Donna, I have some questions. With your report, you have quite a few where they comply. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you have quite a few at the beginning where they comply totally, and I agree with you. But all the way through your report, you have some, I'll go like 3.6, 3.7. 3.7 is one that really piques my curiosity, where lighting, you don't say they comply, but we couldn't ask questions tonight because of lighting, because the answer we kept on getting was prior testimony. But
Right.
You raised the concern in your plan, in your report, that there could be problems with the lighting, but we couldn't ask the question. So when do we ask that question?
So again, because the waterfront redevelopment plan does not have specific standards for lighting, these are not, what's in our report regarding lighting is not an exception or a variance or anything. It's just an observation that we think is relevant to the overall site plan approval discussion. And I believe, I apologize, Michael Sullivan was present at the meeting where Mr. Delaney had given the testimony about the lighting. And you know, he's co-signer on this report. And so he's basically told us that, you know, based on what he heard that night, you know, this is still his concern.
So this is Mike Manzel. If I can answer the mayor's question, I believe, and Jack, you can correct me if I'm wrong, at the end of the process, after the public comment, that's when the board has the opportunity to deliberate on this site plan. And
site plan issues, right.
Right. Further questions can be,
Right.
I mean, if necessary, perhaps, I don't know if we have the power to call back additional.
However, you know what you think, if I may, Michael?
Go ahead.
Mike? What you got to do is you got to go to the testimony of Sean Delaney. It's all there. You're going to have to review it because obviously the applicant's referring back to that and saying that it was completely vetted. Donna thinks that perhaps it was not. You have to make that decision. You can't just say yes or no without looking at and reviewing Mr. Delaney's testimony. You may read it and find that your questions are answered. You may read it and find that your questions aren't answered. And if not, then we bring that up to Ms. Smith and tell her that, and that you may need further testimony on that. But I think you're going to have to look at that, review the testimony of that witness to find out, in fact, what in fact it was, and if you agree that he's covered everything or not.
And just to help everyone, because I think it's pretty clear that we're obviously going to be having another evening of testimony.
Absolutely.
And there's not going to be a vote this evening. So in the interim, June 24th, 2019 was the date on which the lighting was discussed. And if you look starting at Exhibit A21 through A28, those were all exhibits that were testified to in detail at the June 24th meeting. And those videos, to my knowledge, I believe are all available on the APTV YouTube channel on your website.
I think that.
Okay. I'm sorry, it's more again, and fine, I can go back and watch APTV, but I thought there was testimony tonight that the lighting had been changed, and when questions were asked, like, well, past testimony covered that. So I thought there was, as much as it wasn't like major lighting has been changed, but some lighting's been changed, and obviously there's been questions from the
lighting
from the public.
No.
As far as the spillage and everything else. So I mean, okay, and again, I picked 3.7. I could go to 3.6 as screening. I could go to 5.1, which is
if you don't mind, I'll take those
exceptions. I could go through the report by the board's planner and say, like, again, the majority of the things they say you're absolutely 100% legal, but the planning report leaves questions out there. And if we, so like, we can't call witnesses tonight, so I guess I'm just putting you on notice, like, before I vote on this, I'm going to be calling back witnesses or ask the chairperson to call back witnesses, because when can we ask people these specific questions?
Mayor, if I may, if you review the testimony, I'm just saying, you may find out that you still want the witness back, but not having looked at Sean Delaney's testimony regarding the lighting, you don't know if he answered all your questions. And the screening, I think that's going to be by the landscape architect who is yet to testify. So, you know, some of the things that you're obviously going to have to go back and look at things when you make your decision anyway, because you got to make sure you remember the important testimony of all the witnesses, pro and con.
Right. If I may.
I agree. Okay, I'm sorry. I agree with you, Jack. And I wouldn't bring up this question unless the board planner can bring it up in her report.
No, I'm with you. And I'm not saying Donna's wrong, right, or indifferent. I'm saying that Donna points something out, which is she gives advice, I give advice. But if the representation has been made, which it has on more than one occasion this evening, that the lighting details were totally vetted out and covered by Mr. Delaney's testimony, the only way you're going to know the answer to that is if you review his testimony.
Well, hang on. So this is Donna. So the thing about the lighting is,
right.
I want to just clarify, there were no changes in the lighting plan between the testimony in June and today.
Right.
The information in our report, because we didn't have an updated report in between June and today, and we had other things to address, we did leave these concerns, because again, we don't have a clear cut, you can't do this or you can do this about lighting. So even though their lighting plan is what it is, and Mr. Delaney testified the way he did, and you guys asked whatever questions you did that night, these are still our concerns about the lighting plan.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and thank you for clarifying that. But again, I just picked on 3.7, but there's 3.6, there's 3.3, there's like multiple other ones where you're not,
to be addressed by
you the planner are not satisfied with. So I guess at the end, we'll just recall witnesses. Thank you.
On those issues, Mayor, Mr. Bauer, for example, the location of the bench is something Mr. Bauer will testify to. The screening of utilities is something Mr. Bauer is going to testify to. And frankly, much of that has been testified to already, but Mr. Bauer will point out the specific questions that Ms. Miller raised, and that is the scope of his testimony.
Right, there's one thing that I just like, I'm glad that all of this was really brought up here today, because there will be some time that, you know, there's a huge responsibility here that lays with the planning board. We've been here since January of 2019. There are a lot of questions that I'm sure that many of us have taken many notes about what's been going on and what our concerns are. And there's been a lot of testimony. And I agree with the mayor that regarding that there will be deliberation, and we will have those discussions amongst ourselves in public about deliberation, and there may be some witnesses that have to be recalled, because we would go back and listen to the lighting or something else that pops out at us because of these latest reports that we received. So if we have a concern and it has not been answered, and it will be brought up in deliberation, and some people will have to be recalled for us to feel comfortable with making a decision.
Understood. I think what I'm asking, though, is if you please just, if there's concerns about lighting, to please review Mr. Delaney's testimony first, because I think it would be it would extend these proceedings unnecessarily to basically have him come back and repeat his testimony.
That is not my intention. The intention is that the planning board has a responsibility to look at that again. If they have questions about certain things, they should go back and look back. And if those questions are not answers and there's still concerns, then I would not ask someone to come back and do, a full presentation again.
Understood.
There's something very specific, and we take this very seriously because this is a responsibility that we hold, and this is one that will require deliberation that is different than others that we haven't had to do this before because of the size and how and length of time that has gone by. So yes, this is going to be more than finishing up with Mr. Bauer, and then questions by the public and everyone else, and then comments regarding the whole project, and then there'll be deliberation of the planning board to bring some more, anything else to light that we need to bring. So that's just how I see that the next steps are really going to pan out here. So we're here at the hour of 9:58. So at this point, I would like to request that we carry this application to October 19th without notice. And I need a motion to move forward.
Hold on. We need the consent of the applicant to extend the time.
Okay.
Well,
We will consent to an extension to October 19th. And just for the record, that meeting would be at 7 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is the intention that it will be held virtually?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to carry the meeting to October 19th with no further notice?
Motion.
Move it more.
Thank you.
Second more.
Thank you. I have a motion by Alexis Taylor and a second by Mayor Moore. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Application carried to October 19th, 2020 without further notice.
Hey, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
if I may. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
Yeah. Monday night, we have another meeting. I will have both the subdivision resolution, which has already been sent to everyone, and the site plan resolution for the triangle on that project. And we do need to adopt the resolutions that evening. So I will have both of them in your hands. One's already there, but I will have the other one in your hands by Wednesday, close of business. So we should be able to tweak them and have them ready for Monday night.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I think you had that.
Move it.
What, did I already have it?
Yeah,
No,
you had
we
the motion. It was Alexis Taylor, John Moore
No,
second.
that was to carry, Jack.
That was a carry, not to adjourn the meeting.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's all right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
It's Jen Souter.
Move it more.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mayor Moore and a second by Jen Souter. All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Have a good night and see you on September 21st.
Thank you.